welcome back to the water cooler, everybody. Hey, I'm going to do my invitation to Joe Biden. Oh, you can't see that or still this show. Here, I'll just do it like this. Next. Next. Executive orders. Up the yin-yang. We like that term. I don't know even what it means. I'll have to Google it. Maybe I shouldn't have used it. Anyhow, but he's signing them up the yin-yang. And let's get more on all of that from Aron Solomon with the senior strategist from nextlevel.com. Aron, good to see you, sir.
It's great to be back. I didn't know we'd be using yin yang today, but it's a bonus.
Yeah, I tell you what, anytime you can get yin yang in a show, it's always good. And by the way, just to confirm, you're not related to John Solomon or Solomon from the Bible. Just double checking that before we get going.
I'm definitely related to Solomon from the Bible.
Oh, you are related. You have the DNA ancestry to prove that? How do we confirm that?
I'm sure it's available online, as everything is. These days, everything's online.
That's a good point. That's true. All right. You know what else is online? You can read all of Joe Biden's executive orders. And boy, there's a lot of reading to do. What's your take on what he's been doing in these first 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours?
So the first thing that I want to say from a legal perspective is that, executive orders, the power to give executive orders comes from Article 2 of the Constitution. And executive orders can in no way extend what I've seen is not one of the executive orders that the president has signed. And I agree that pen is getting a really good workout in the first day, have done anything to extend the power of the president. There's supposed to be this dynamic tension between the executive, the judiciary, and the legislative branches. It's the same thing with executive orders.
Yeah, and so then I wanted to show a little bit of what you said. I want to put this up on the screen because you wrote about this, and this is what you said. You said the most important thing to realize about an executive order and something that will frame all of the executive orders we see from President Biden over the coming days is that they cannot create new presidential powers. It is the exact opposite, actually. An executive order is a way for the president to use a power already assigned to them. So it kind of begs the question, what's the delineation line? Where does it get into murky territory? How do we know an executive order has potentially gone too far?
Well, the president has certain powers accorded to him or her from the Constitution. Let's pick one from yesterday, right? Going back into the Paris Agreement. So the president has the role of head of state. It's not the judiciary that's the head of state. It's not the legislature that's the head of state. It was President Trump, and today it's President Biden. So to pull in or out of the Paris Accord is absolutely within the scope of the head of state power of the chief executive of the United States. So, I mean, anybody who would argue otherwise on one like that isn't getting a good grasp of the Constitution. Whether or not it was advisable politically, that's something that people can debate and will debate for the next 4 years.
Yeah. So where are we going from here? I mean, what is your sense about historically? I know FDR was like the king of executive orders, was he not? Of course, he was in office a little longer than most.
Oh my gosh, FDR did something like 3,700 executive orders. But it's funny though, one thing, there's one myth we're going to bust right now. People thought that President Obama did lots of executive orders, and maybe it seemed like he did, but he did under 400 orders, I believe. And I think there was only 1 year in the 9 calendar years that, at least for part of the year that he was president, that I believe he exceeded 40 orders. So FDR, did a lot of orders, and President Biden is going to do a lot of orders over these next, few days. So don't be surprised. There's more coming.
Talk to me about the teeth in some of these executive orders. Sometimes I feel like some have more teeth than others. Like, for example, the Paris Climate Accord. Okay, they're going to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. That's a big deal. There's others that feel a little bit more symbolic or a little less teeth in them. What's your sense?
I agree with you 100%. I mean, the reality is, look, a lot of executive orders are political because they are engendered to create or reverse political goodwill. But on the other hand, a lot of the ones that he signed are super hyper practical. Look at the, XL Keystone Pipeline. That executive order is, has billions of dollars of political and financial implication attached to it. And also, I believe that the first major head of state that President Biden is going to have a conversation with is Justin Trudeau of Canada. And I know because I actually am Canadian. Living within Canada, Justin Trudeau is getting a lot of pressure from every side to do something or not something about Keystone.
Well, while you brought it up, Canada and Justin Trudeau, what is the sense? Because we had Noah Weinrich on earlier from the Heritage Foundation here who said Canada overall is going to be pretty ticked off about this from a financial standpoint. What is your sense? What's your read up there?
I disagree. See, I think that Canada is so fractured and divided, like the United States is in so many ways. Here it tends to go more geographically. So if you look at Alberta, if you look at the west of Canada, yeah, this is a huge deal. The premier of Alberta, Jason Kenney, has been all up in arms about what's been going on. And if you look at east of Canada, and I'm a native Montrealer, and I recently moved back to Montreal from spending 4 years living in Berlin. Very happy, by the way, to talk about America's reputation internationally, because that's something that is going to be worked on over the next few weeks. So Canada is divided on what's going on with Keystone. It's not as big of a deal in the eastern part of Canada.
Do you know the history about challenging executive orders? How rare is it? Can executive orders, obviously they can be challenged, right, by Congress and to the courts? I mean, talk to me a little bit about how that would work exactly.
It's, as you said, it's pretty rare. If either the judiciary or the legislature or both feels that any president is overstepping his or her bounds in issuing executive orders, they can be challenged. Congress essentially has the power to veto an executive order if they can make the case that the executive order is the president usurping power that has been constitutionally guaranteed to either the executive or the legislature. I try to explain American law and politics sometimes to an international audience. And the thing that they need to understand is that this dynamic tension that exists between these branches of government is intentional, right? The framers on down meant to do this. And if we see some of this dynamic tension emerge over the first 100 days, I personally think that's a good thing.
Yeah. But I have about 30 seconds left or so. My sense is we're going to get quite a few executive orders from Biden based on the fact that the Biden administration wants to undo a lot of what Trump did by executive order.
Yes, and part of what you're going to see in these executive orders is going to create a need for funding. If you look at something like this idea that we're going to have 100 million vaccines by the end of April, part of what needs to go along with that is a lot of funding. And also, one of the things that we're going to see is a lot of revisiting of the economic stimulus packages. There are people, as you know, who believe that it shouldn't happen. Yeah. There are other people who believe that the economic stimulus goes right back in the economy.
Aron Solomon, I learned so much from you because your last name is, wait for it, Solomon, of course. So you're wise.
Thank you very much, David. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Aron. Appreciate it. From north of the border. There in Canada. Next time we have Aron on, we got to see if he speaks French because he said he's from Montreal. Oui. And so you wonder if he's just going to say the whole segment in French. That would be kind of cool. Back in a moment.